All right, let's dive in today. We're tackling something I think a lot of families grapple with, navigating family life, especially when neurodiversity is involved. And we're zeroing in even more, looking at what happens when, both the parent and the child are living with ADHD. So for this deep dive, we've gathered quite a range of sources. We've got neuroscience research, practical guides, stuff really based on lived experience too, all aimed at giving you a clearer view of this very unique family dynamic.
Yeah, and our goal here is really to cut through all the noise. We want to pull out the key insights, the practical stuff, the strategies that actually work, and hopefully foster some understanding, some connection, basically get straight to what's most useful without, overwhelming you with information.
Definitely. And look, if this sounds like your family, if you're a parent with ADHD and your child also has ADHD, you are so far from alone. There was this one statistic that really stood out from a guide called Parenting with ADHD.
Oh, yeah, I remember that one.
It highlighted just how heritable ADHD is. Like research shows something like 40 to 60% of kids with ADHD, they have a parent who also has it.
That's a huge percentage.
So yeah, if you're listening and nodding along, there are a lot of people navigating this exact same thing. Okay, so let's maybe take a step back first. What exactly is ADHD? Just so we're all on the same page. How should we think about it for this conversation?
That's a great starting point. Fundamentally, it's seen as a neurodevelopmental condition. The core features are usually described as, inattention, hyperactivity, and impulsivity. But the really critical part is how those things actually impact daily life. And often that's for both the parent and the child. We're talking about real difficulties with things like managing emotions, executive functions, planning, organizing, and even just getting started on tasks.
Right, the task initiation piece, that can be huge.
Absolutely. These aren't just little quirks. They genuinely shape how people move through their day. And maybe we should quickly define a couple of those key terms that pop up a lot in the sources.
Good idea.
So executive dysfunction, that basically means trouble with organizing stuff, figuring out priorities, actually following through.
Okay.
Then there's emotional dysregulation. That's about having really strong emotional reactions, maybe feeling frustration or overwhelm really intensely, and finding it hard to kind of dial that back down.
Like feeling flooded sometimes.
Exactly. And lastly, this interesting pair, hyperfocus and distractibility. So either having a really hard time keeping your attention on something or getting so locked into one thing you lose track of everything else around you.
That push and pull. So when you put that all together, a parent with ADHD, a child with ADHD, what is that double dynamic, as you called it? What does that actually look like day to day? What are the friction points?
Yeah, this is where it gets, really interesting and honestly often quite challenging. The sources point out how routines, for example, can just fall apart much faster. And it's not just routines. Things like handling transitions, moving from one activity to another, staying regulated, being consistent, all that stuff becomes exponentially harder when both people are struggling with those same executive function things.
Ah, okay. So it's not just twice as hard. It's like they compound each other.
That's a really good way to put it. Yeah, it can feel like a multiplier effect. Both brains are hitting similar walls at the same time,
Yeah, I could see how frustration could build really quickly then.
It absolutely can. But, and this is really important, the sources are also quick to balance this out. They talk about the unique strengths that often come with this dynamic too.
Okay, like what?
Well, things like a really deep level of empathy, often a ton of creativity, and just this shared understanding that can be incredibly powerful. A lot of parents with ADHD find they're just naturally attuned to what their child is going through because they felt it themselves.
Ah, so that shared experience becomes a bridge.
Exactly. That connection, that shared wiring, it can actually be a kind of superpower within the family, believe it or not.
I like that framing, a superpower. Okay, so for the parent listening right now, living this reality, what are some practical strategies?
Yeah.
What does the research, what do these guides suggest they can do?
Right. So the first big piece of advice is often summed up as know your brain. It's about understanding how ADHD manifests specifically in you. Because knowing your own patterns, like where you get distracted or what helps you focus, isn't just for your own benefit. It's essential for figuring out supportive systems that work for the whole family.
Okay, so self-awareness is step one. What kind of tools or strategies help with that?
Well, practical tools are key. Things you can actually see and use. So timers, visual schedules, reminders on your phone, planners, digital, paper, whatever works for you.
Externalizing the executive functions, basically.
Exactly. And then strategies like body doubling. Have you heard of that?
Yeah, doing a task alongside someone else.
Right. Just having another person nearby, even if they're doing something totally different, can really help with staying on track. Like maybe you tackle folding laundry while your partner pays bills. Also, trying to keep your environment, ADHD friendly. Minimizing clutter where you can.
Yeah.
Maybe grouping similar tasks together, like, I don't know, processing mail while you listen to a podcast.
Makes sense. Okay, and you mentioned self-awareness. I know a lot of adults with ADHD carry like a lot of shame or guilt about their struggles. How does that factor into parenting?
Oh, hugely. That leads to the next big theme: lower the shame, raise the structure. It's about recognizing that, yeah, parenting is hard, and parenting with ADHD adds another layer, so self-compassion is crucial.
Accepting that it's okay not to be perfect.
Totally. And practically, this looks like building routines, but making them flexible. Structure is helpful, but rigid structure often breaks. So having structure with room to pivot, using if-then plans can be great too. Like, okay, if I start getting distracted while trying to make dinner, then I'll set a 5-minute timer on my phone and just focus on chopping veggies for that time.
Breaking it down.
Yeah, and keeping expectations realistic and clear for yourself and for your child. It's about setting everyone up for success, not aiming for some impossible ideal.
And what about when emotions do get intense? Because with that emotional dysregulation piece for potentially both parent and child, things can escalate fast.
Absolutely. This is where the advice regulate before you respond comes in. It's about recognizing that ADHD impacts emotional control and building in a pause before you react.
Easier said than done sometimes. What helps create that pause?
Concrete techniques are your friend here. Breathing exercises are powerful, like the 4-7-8 breath, where you inhale for 4, hold for 7, exhale for 8. It really can calm the nervous system quickly. Movement breaks are also great. A quick walk around the block, putting on some music and dancing for a minute, even just stretching.
Get the energy out.
Yeah, discharge that intense feeling. And don't forget simple things like visual calming cues. Maybe dimming the lights, putting on a calming playlist. Creating a shift in the environment can help create a shift internally, too.
Okay, that's really helpful for the parent side.
Right.
Now, let's switch gears a bit. What about strategies specifically aimed at helping the child with ADHD?
Right. So one really powerful strategy highlighted in the sources is focusing on praise and positivity. Think about it. Kids with ADHD often get a lot of correction. Don't do that. Stop fidgeting. Pay attention. It can feel constant.
Yeah, the negativity bias can be strong.
Exactly. So it's incredibly important to consciously counteract that with specific, labeled praise. Not just a generic good job, but something like, wow, you remember to put your backpack by the door all by yourself. That shows great focus.
Ah, naming the positive behavior.
Precisely. And there's actually a neurological reason why this works so well. That kind of specific praise helps support dopamine regulation, which we know is a key factor in ADHD brains. You're literally helping reinforce the pathways for that behavior.
That's fascinating. Okay, praise. What else?
Visual and predictable schedules are huge. Kids with ADHD generally do much better when they know what's coming, and even better when they can see it.
Makes sense. Reduces anxiety about the unknown.
Totally. So using tools like picture schedules for younger kids, checklists, calendars on the wall, and crucially, building breaks and transition warnings into those schedules. Transitions are often tough spots.
Right, shifting gears is hard.
Yeah. So giving a heads up like, okay, 5 more minutes of playtime, then it's time to clean up, can make a massive difference compared to an abrupt stop. Simple, but effective. And what about movement? You mentioned movement breaks for parents. Equally important for kids, I assume.
Oh, absolutely critical. The theme here is movement, play, and regulation. Daily physical activity isn't just exercise. It's vital for helping their bodies and brains regulate.
So what kind of activities?
Anything, really. Trampoline time, running around outside, dancing, building an obstacle course, whatever gets them moving. And alongside that, think about calming tools. Things like fidget toys, maybe chewing gum, weighted lap pads, or blankets can be really grounding for some kids.
Sensory input.
Exactly. And don't forget the power of play itself, especially expressive play. Things like drawing, painting, music, making up stories. These are fantastic outlets for processing feelings and regulating energy.
Okay, this is all great practical stuff. Now I want to talk about the relationship itself, strengthening that parent-child bond, especially when maybe both are dealing with similar struggles. Yes, this is so important, and a key concept here is co-regulation. The idea is that children, especially younger children, learn how to manage their own emotions through their interactions with their caregivers.
So they borrow our calm, essentially.
That's a great way to put it. You model regulation for them. So when you're feeling frustrated yourself, try narrating your calming process out loud, like saying, "Oof, I'm feeling really frustrated right now, so I'm going to take 3 deep breaths before I talk."
Making the internal process external for them to see.
Exactly. It shows them the connection between the feeling, the awareness, and the strategy. You're teaching them how to regulate by doing it yourself and making it visible.
That seems particularly powerful in this double ADHD dynamic where the parent truly gets the struggle.
It really is. And that ties into using shared language. Using simple, brain-based terms can help de-shame the experience for everyone.
What does that sound like in practice?
Well, instead of maybe "stop bouncing your leg," which can sound critical, you might try something like, "Looks like your brain needs to move right now. What could help with that?"
Framing it as a need, not a misbehavior.
Right. Or, "My brain feels a bit fuzzy this morning. I need to write things down." It normalizes the experience and frames it as how your brains work rather than a flaw. It builds that shared understanding we talked about earlier.
Okay, but let's be real. Even with the best intentions, parents are going to lose their cool sometimes. Things will go wrong.
Absolutely. Nobody's perfect, especially under stress. And that's where the concept of rupture and repair is so vital. Rupture's those moments where you yell or overreact or misunderstand each other. They will happen. The most important part isn't avoiding them entirely, it's the repair that comes after.
How do you repair effectively?
It's about acknowledging what happened and reconnecting. Modeling a genuine apology is huge. Saying something like, "Hey, I'm sorry I raised my voice earlier. I was feeling overwhelmed, but I shouldn't have yelled. Can we try talking about it again?"
Taking responsibility.
Exactly. It teaches your child that mistakes happen, that relationships can weather conflict, and that it's safe to come back together. It builds immense trust and resilience.
That's such a crucial life skill for them to learn, too.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of strategies, but doing this alone can feel overwhelming. What kind of support systems should families look for?
Yeah, reaching out for support is key. The sources mention several avenues. For the parent, things like ADHD coaching specifically for adults can be incredibly helpful. There are also organizations like CHADD or ADD that offer resources and support groups. Connecting with other adults who get it can make a huge difference.
Finding your people.
Exactly. And for the child, looking for pediatric behavioral therapists who really specialize in ADHD is important. They can teach specific skills and strategies. Occupational therapy can also be fantastic, especially if there are sensory processing challenges, which often go hand in hand with ADHD.
Right, for things like sensitivities to textures or sounds or needing certain kinds of movement.
Precisely. And of course, medication is an important consideration for many families. The key takeaway there is that if it's something you're considering, it needs to be discussed thoroughly with a qualified doctor or psychiatrist who understands ADHD.
Okay, so lots of potential supports out there. So kind of pulling this all together, navigating this dull ADHD dynamic, it definitely has its unique hurdles, no doubt about it. But as we've talked about, it also comes with these incredible strengths, right? And there are concrete, effective strategies people can use.
Absolutely. It really comes down to, well, understanding the condition, understanding yourself, understanding your child, plus self-compassion, which we keep coming back to, and then consistently using these practical tools. It can shift the experience from feeling constantly overwhelming to something that feels, manageable and even deeply rewarding. The goal is to foster a family environment where everyone feels seen, supported, and ultimately like they can thrive because of who they are, not in spite of it.
That's a powerful goal. And maybe a final thought for everyone listening to mull over. Think about this. What if embracing your own unique brain wiring and your child's unique wiring wasn't just about managing deficits? What if it was actually about unlocking a deeper connection, a more empathetic connection, maybe even a more creative one because of those shared traits? What might change in your family if you started seeing that shared ADHD experience not just as an obstacle, but maybe as the foundation for a really unique, really special bond?
That's a great question to sit with.
Something to think about. We really encourage you to explore these ideas more if they resonated with you today.